Good morning. My name is Don Daniel. Politics. For many of us, that conjures up the agenda of the Democratic, Republican, Libertarian, or Tea Party. But politics is far more than that. Like many of you, I've been involved with social causes most of my life. I've sat in, protested, marched, and been arrested. For many things. Not arrested for many things, but all those other things. This pushing to change the status quo, to nudge things along, has always felt like a radical action that I welcomed. The choices we make every day, the way we spend our time and our money, are all political acts. Simple things like what gas to buy, or what chicken sandwich you want to eat, are all votes for the future that we hope to see. Early in my life, I was involved in the food service industry, cooking and serving high-quality food that was natural and organic, far before it became popular. I did this for a number of reasons. One of those was to usher in a new age of social consciousness. Food as politics. At another phase in my life, during the 80s, I was living in Santa Monica and began to notice an increase in homelessness, and due to many things like cuts in social services and the closing of mental hospitals. This was a disturbing trend that was visible wherever I looked. Because of its excellent climate, it became a magnet, and Santa Monica became known as the home of the homeless. But it wasn't just homelessness, it was a voicelessness as well. These powerless people, in the eyes of many, were dismissed as a blight on society, swept under the carpet and ignored. Some of my friends and colleagues in the film industry took a small segment of this problem and decided to deal with it. We always had catered lunches on the film set, and they overfed us like crazy, so there was lots left over. We would take all that food that was left and give it directly to the people that need it. Not solving the greater problem, but helping out. The run-up to the war in Iraq brought a lot of folks together, but the drums of war all but drowned out its critics. And as we know what happened. Martina, Maya, and I attended rallies, held posters, and waved peace signs to passing cars long before Maya could walk. I followed the flowering of the Arab Spring with great interest and hope. When the Occupy movement started to sprout on U.S. soil, I was encouraged that the movement was galvanizing many different segments of society and shining a light on many problems that had percolated for years. When the encampment sprang up in Dewey Square, we knew we had to go down. What we experienced on that first trip was much like what Barbara and Vern experienced at Occupy Wall Street. Friendly folks treating total strangers better than family. Deep in wonderment, we joined a tour and were introduced to many of the services that were offered there. It was a self-sufficient community with lots of services, free to all. At the signs tent, we stopped and marveled at the handiwork and ended up making signs of our own. Maya created a wonderful sign that she proudly added to her collection of protest signs. We ran into the Reverends John and Sarah and had a delightful conversation before we got to the food tent, where nourishment and love was being passed out freely. With no hesitation, we joined in the disbursement of both. Before we left, I asked one of the residents of the food working group what they needed. He told me they had plenty of food on the weekends, but during the week, the supplies began dropping off and dwindled to a trickle. I knew what I had to do. That Tuesday, I brought down a big container of curried pumpkin stew. Donna Reed joined us the next week, and we took gallons of yummy vegetable soup. Soon, other Unitarian churches and congregations joined in on other nights, and the delivery of hot food began in earnest. Thanks to the generosity of this community, Wissy G, the Occupy Affinity Group, and Patty Shepard, that Tuesday night feast continued long past the closing of Dewey, through the winter, the spring, and into the summer. It was gratifying to help feed and be a part of Occupy Boston's General Assembly, where those once ignored voices were now being heard. To answer Cain's question from Genesis, yes, we are our brother's keepers.